Rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. First item on the agenda is the approval of minutes. The minutes for May 16, 2024, September 9.
Okay, never mind. Maybe turn it on when you're talking.
It's interesting.
Okay.
That was interesting.
We're good? The minutes of May 16, 2024, September 19, 2024, and November 21st, 2024 will defer to a later date. We do have the minutes for April 3rd, 2025 before us for review. Do we have any comments or revisions to be made?
I did not make and second.
That was corrected. Jeremy did. Other comments?
I make a motion to approve. Second?
Well,
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I thought.
first I have to make sure no one else has any.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Any comments from this end?
No.
Okay, we have a motion from Neil, second by Giovanni. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Against? I abstain. Next item on the agenda is a public hearing. Student Bus Company Incorporated, 20-2-6 and 7. We have an application for a site plan approval and lot line adjustment for a bus terminal on 3.4 plus or minus acres along Industrial Drive in a CO zone, AQ3 overlay. Before I open up the public hearing, we'll hear from the applicants or their consultants, after which we'll hear from our consultants and our board, and then I'll open up to the public for any comments or concerns you might have.
Good evening, my name is Anthony Tropiano. I'm from Hometown Engineering, representing the applicant. I'm not sure if anybody from the public is here for us today, but I'll kind of just give an explanation of what the application is. The applicant for the project is Student Bus Company, Inc. They are...
You may want to stand on the other side just a little bit, so if anyone from the public wants to see it, they're standing in front of these.
Is there anybody from the public here that's for the app? Okay.
Yeah, just try to kind of just face this way.
Sure.
Perfect.
Good? Okay.
Perfect.
Yeah, so Student Bus Company, like their name suggests, they're a bus company that serves school districts. They transport students from the schools back and forth between schools and their homes. They have some contracts with some area school districts. One of them is the Village of Florida Central School District, and there's another one in Chester. So they've been in search of a piece of property that they can operate out of that's local to those districts, that would help them serve them as best as they're able to. So the piece of property that they found and that we're here, in front of the planning board for site plan approval is located at 10 Industrial Drive. So Industrial Drive is an existing commercial development. The property that they're looking to acquire and operate out of is located here. It's a cul-de-sac that has access off of State Route 17A, and it's located just to the north of the Village of Florida. It's ideal for what they're looking for because it's already fully developed. It has a building on it, well, septic, and gravel access and parking areas. The zone is a commercial zone, and the use is a permitted use subject to the site plan approval from the planning board. So that's the general purpose. And any other questions, and I'll answer as best I can.
Thank you. Sean, if you don't mind.
Yeah, happy to, Mr. Chairman. So this is actually an amended site plan. It's a developed site. It is essentially a conversion from a previously approved warehouse to a bus dispatch center. There's also a lot line adjustment associated with this. You'll recall, transfer 1 acre approximately from this parcel to the adjacent parcel. You have received from me written comments. The applicant received a copy of those comments. At your last meeting, when you scheduled this public hearing, you had requested comments from the town's traffic consultant. Those actually came in today. I just want to check with the applicant, make sure that you received those. I had emailed those around 3 o'clock today.
Okay, I left my office before that, but I'm sure they're in my email.
Okay. So you now have those. I sent those to the board also. I'm not sure if you had a chance to review those yet.
Could you summarize some of the,
Yeah, I can go through it if you'd like.
please?
Bear with me just for a second. So, again, it's a memorandum up today from Kimley Horn, your traffic consultant. There was discussion about the unsignalized T intersection at Industrial and 17A. Kimley Horn indicates that they reviewed the applicant's traffic impact study. It's currently operating at level of service C, and it exceeds the warrant for a left-hand turn lane on New York State 17A during all hours study. Again, this is a bus dispatch, so their peak hours are different than most businesses. But when Kimley Horn's talking about the peak hours, talking about the applicant's peak hours. They indicated that they can generate up to 77 additional trips on Industrial Drive. And they're also concerned about northbound 17A into Industrial Drive, that left-hand turn there.
Those 77 trips, is that both in and out or combined?
Generate up to 77 additional trips. I believe that's in and out.
Okay.
All right.
Now, is that just the buses or the buses and the cars of the employees?
That's a good question. They didn't specify. I'm sorry.
I assumed it to be both.
I would think
Employee
it is.
coming in, bus going out.
Based on the number of buses that they have, yeah, I would think it is, but I'm not sure. Kimley Horn had 4 recommendations / comments. One, they're asking the applicant to look at the last 5 years of crash data at the intersection. 2, they're asking the applicant to look at the intersection site distances as well as the stopping site distances. You'll recall the stopping site distances of vehicles approaching that T intersection, make sure they have enough time to stop if there's a bus or a car in the way. They had requested some more details on the applicant's proposal to jockey buses around and bring in passenger cars driven by their operators to occupy spots that are filled by buses. And they also agree with my comments regarding maneuvering out of certain stalls indicated on the applicant's site plan. It was unclear whether they had enough room to actually make the turns out of a couple parking stalls.
Thank you.
Well,
Comments from the board?
I have questions, I don't know if I have comments.
Questions work.
Okay. It seems to me, looking at the site plan, that stalls 31 through 36 up in the corner, it's a rather tight area. And I was wondering how, with the employees, what you're proposing is that the employees will be driving the buses, will be moving the buses when their cars arrive, and then putting their cars in the bus stalls. I'm wondering if there's sufficient room there to allow for that maneuverability, for that number of cars and that number of buses, and that what seems to me to be a rather tight area.
So I think the most important thing to understand is, and these guys can fill in a little bit too on that, 'cause, on the operations, is that you're not gonna have 25, 30 cars on the property at the same time. It'll be queued. So car one's gonna show up and occupy bus 1 spot, and then 2, and then 3. So the employees will know, and just correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, I think the key is that we have about 10 spots in the front of the building that are vacant on the site plan. Then we have the shop where we would typically have 2, 3, 4 vehicles. So first drivers in would park their personal cars in those vacant spaces, and that kind of lets it cascade. They take their bus, now there's a spot open for another car, and so forth down the line.
Okay, and you're proposing, based on your narrative, that this is gonna occur within a 10-minute window
I don't believe so. The check-in is, I mean, our traffic report, I think, has us at an hour and 15 minutes for drivers checking
I
in.
believe I read in the Part 3, EAF, that the expected time of arrival of the drivers in their cars would be 10 minutes before their departure time with the buses.
Yes, but all of the routes are staggered, so of course, every route is a little bit different, so you might be going to the other side of town, or you might have a pickup right around the corner. We transport the corner of Industrial Drive currently, so the routes are organically staggered. Some drivers do a 9 o'clock school, some do an 8 o'clock school. That spreads it out on its own.
Well, I hope it works for you. Let me ask you another question. I didn't see, and I may have overlooked it, the amount of energy consumption that you expect that the project expects to use operationally. Assuming that it's a reasonable amount, I'm okay. If it is a large energy consumer, you've got a 9,000 square foot building. I'm wondering if you've contemplated the use of solar panels to mitigate electric consumption.
You know, one of the interesting things inside of the building that interests me, it was an appliance repair shop, so I've never seen so many 220 and 110 outlets in one place. I'm not an expert, I don't know what that means as far as the main coming in, but the largest power draw we have are column lifts to lift the vehicles. Those are actually battery operated and mobile, so we generally charge them off peak, so over the weekend, something like that. And then it's really an air compressor for air tools and standard office equipment, a printer, that kind of stuff.
Did I miss it, or did you, Sean, maybe you can help me out here. Did they put right in the EAF, the energy consumption that they anticipate?
In the Part 1, Phil, or the?
Yeah, Part 1.
I'd have to look back to see if they had it in there, sorry.
I would just urge you, as I do with most of the applicants, to consider the use of solar panels as a mitigation against fossil fuel-based energy. You also wrote that you anticipated that waivers might be needed, and I didn't quite understand what you were looking for in terms of waivers. Perhaps you meant variances?
There was one waiver from the design guidelines of the location of the parking that were in the design guidelines for the planning board, that gives the planning board the specific authority to waive.
That was the parking in front of the facility?
The parking in front of the facility was going to the building, no, the building inspector, because there had been parking, but there was one waiver that we did need to request that was in the design guidelines that are waivable by the planning board, and not a code provision that would require a variance.
It's a structure of the building, street trees, sidewalks, all that stuff.
Yes, the waiver request was from a section of the code that discusses storage of equipment within any kind of building setback line, so side, rear, and front yard setback. And in the code, the planning board is authorized to waive full compliance with that design guideline if it would impose unnecessary hardship or discourage property owners from improving their properties. And that's essentially what we're requesting, because I believe that the buses themselves would be technically considered storage. And the way that we have the property laid out, we're kind of forced in some way, just because of the building, obviously. We're proposing buses to be parked at night along this sideline, which would be outside of the setback. And then up in this area here, this would be, we have a large rear setback due to the zone that this adjoining property is in. So some of the buses would be stored outside of that setback line as well. So that's what the waiver request is looking for.
Okay. One more question. Under parking stalls 6 and 7, there's a septic tank. Does this create any safety issues?
Yeah, we had a structural engineer come out, we exposed the entire tank. We took a look at it, and with the construction of the tank and the depth of the tank, there was no concerns as far as having a bus over top of it.
Okay. Is there a report to that effect?
There is a septic analysis that was submitted previously, and it's mentioned as part of that report.
Okay. Thank you.
Sherman?
No, I think. I got one question. I mean, there's a lot of buses parked along the side of the properties, and if they have a snow day, most likely the buses will not be moving, right? Who's gonna pull all the snow?
In most cases, have it carted out in roll-offs,
Where would you even be piling it to cart it?
and where we can find space if it's not, if we're not operating, all of the lanes are obviously available. We can park it in front of the building there. There's where the handicap spot is, you know, wherever.
Yeah, if they had to push snow somewhere, it would end up probably here and here, you know, and we could indicate that on the plan. This isn't like heavily wooded right here. You know, there is some area here where they can put it, but these areas are completely open. That's the way I envisioned it, you know, when it came to me.
Two questions for you. First one I raised previously, the water main, the county water main that traverses the property. Is there an easement over that the county holds on the property? I'm not seeing that on the map.
I asked the county surveyor, and he's not aware of one for that line. There's two county-owned water mains in this area. This is one of them. This one serves Valley View. And then there's another one that's actually located at the end of the cul-de-sac that runs along a railroad bed. That land, I guess, it's either by easement or by ownership, I don't know, but they have something on that. But the county surveyor wasn't aware, they couldn't find anything on this. And that was our surveyor, the project surveyor, located that on the map based on the filed commercial subdivision that was previously done.
Okay. And the other question I had, I understand you had some correspondence with the Department of Health as far as the well.
Yes,
Proximity, because this will become a public water supply.
correct.
The well that where it's located now was not acceptable, and you were gonna be locating a replacement well elsewhere.
That's right.
And whether it was now or at some point in the future, I don't know what was arranged, you know, as far as the conversation. But where exactly is that
Sure.
to be?
Yeah. So one of the biggest things that when we started talking to the health department was creating a location on the plan where we had 100-foot of ownership, which obviously we don't have with this well. And then the other variable that we were contending with was the fact that there's an existing septic system here. Is there a way that we can locate a well on the property where we get 100-foot of ownership and as far away from the septic system as possible, with the hopes that we don't have to build a brand new septic system? You know, that's its own can of worms, obviously. So we settled on a location that was it's essentially right where, if you look at the map, there's a 440 label on the contour. So it's sort of the middle of the property and just a little bit up the embankment in the back. At that location, right there, at this location right here, there's 100-foot ownership. We're basically pinned 100 feet off of the property line, and that gives us the maximum distance that we could possibly get from the septic system. And then we had to request a couple of waivers from the health department. You know, because technically a public water supply is required to be 200 feet off a septic. We were about 160, I think it was.
Baseline topography, 100 to 200.
Yeah, so they, after some back and forth and a formal submission to the health department, they did issue the waivers that we had requested and approve the well location at that spot.
And then the two tanks, the 600-gallon diesel and 150-gallon tank, they were gonna be relocated.
Yep,
Where are they going?
that is now gonna be proposed behind the building over here.
And that's where the buses would fill as well?
Yeah, so that was ideal. You know, the other option was to put it in the front of the building, which could have been done. But just from an operations standpoint, makes more sense to keep it in the back, and it allows the buses, you know,
It's
this
still
is
easier
the
to
path
plan.
of travel.
So if you have buses parked as you're representing from number 1 to 5, and you have the tanks sitting there exterior to the building, does that still give you enough of a width for the buses to get through without impinging on the tanks?
Yeah, so the tank won't be located on this edge. It's gonna be located on this edge, which
Okay.
could impact 6. So we're gonna look at that. You know, 6 might end up going next to 20 in the back.
So you'd be setting it kind of like we're on top of the septic tank.
Well, so that's another thing. That on the when you get a revised plan, that septic tank is actually located here. That was a surveyor issue. Apologies.
Okay. That's all I have.
If I can just add to that,
Sure.
we're looking to move that as quickly as possible. We have a contractor dig the well. We're looking to get, I think, I'm not an expert on wells and all that, but I think we're looking to get local permits, whatever we need, and
For the well.
exceed considerably the timeline from DOH.
Perfect. Thank you.
I would note that the DOH, as part of their waivers, would allow the facility to open
Right.
using bottled water for potable water and just using the well water.
For sanitary
non-potable
purposes.
Sanitary
Yep.
purposes, subject to us complying within a certain
With
amount
that
of
time
time.
constraint.
So hopefully, if the board goes forward and approve it, that condition could be, you know, included, that after a certain period of operation, we would have to demonstrate to you that we did have health department approval for the new well.
Thank you, John.
I don't have any further questions.
Nothing.
My only question really goes to traffic, and I'm not sure, I didn't see the traffic study of theirs until tonight, and I don't think they've seen our responses yet, so I don't know if we want to continue that so we can have that discussion later, or next week, next meeting or something, but that's my concern,
The traffic.
yeah.
Okay. Any other comments, Sean, that you have before I open to the public?
Unless the board has questions for me, Mr. Chairman.
Questions for engineer? If not, can I have a motion then to open the public hearing? Okay, we have Eric, second by Phil. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Against? Anybody from the public that wishes to speak or comment on this application, if you'll just, for the record, give us your name and your address, your concern, and they'll be noted. One at a time, but just raise your hand if you wish to speak. I'll start at this end of the room. Okay, this end of the room.
I think you
You have to say something.
I guess. Good evening, my name is Chris Healy, I'm a town of Goshen resident. I think I've already spoken, if I wasn't at this board, it was at zoning, I'm starting to lose track. I like this applicant, I like the presentation that they've made. I think this is a great business for Goshen. That being said, I have said before and I'll repeat, every square inch of this property is being used. Mr. Fuentes brought up at the last meeting, snow removal. Any of us who have lived in Orange County knows that a 6-inch snowfall is going to be devastating on this site. We did hear the applicant say that they're going to clean the buses with brooms by hand. And I think if you had a quarter of the buses, that might be possible. As the snow comes off, where are you going to put it? And so I say this. Industrial Drive is a town road. There are many other businesses on Industrial Drive. This idea of bringing, by the way, the traffic study, about 35 buses, that's 35 drivers coming in, 35 buses going out, 35 buses coming back, 35 employees leaving. 177, I can math and that's not it. So the traffic study, please, let's go take a look at that again.
77.
Yeah, it's not 77. Again, we talked about this in the ERB and we said, look, all of these problems are a them problem. If they can't clear the snow, that's their problem. If they can't get the buses out, that's their problem. The only time this becomes a town problem is when employees are parked out on the town road. So if PD comes by and tickets the cars, don't cry about it, just pay the fine. If PD comes by and tows your cars, don't cry about it, that's a them problem. If the buses end up out on Industrial Drive, there are other businesses out there, and they deserve to have clear passage down the road. The applicant says it won't be a problem. I'll take them at their word that they've got this figured out. For my 2 cents, I could never make that work. They must be great at it, this is their business, I wish them luck. But if you're looking for a common sense guy from the public to talk, that's what you got, that's what I'm seeing. My name's Chris Healy, thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
What's your name?
Anybody else from the public wish to speak? If not, can I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Phil, second by
I'll second.
Giovanni, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Against? Kelly, what's our next step?
Well, next up is they just submitted their EAF Part 3, so you still need to review that, and you'll review that at your next meeting and continue with your determination of significance. So Neil, that'll give you your extra time for the traffic study.
Mr. Chair, just one question. This speaks to what Neil had said.
Yes.
Would you like me to ask John Canning to come to that meeting? Or do you think that the report is enough, or do you want some time to get back to me on that?
I would just probably just clarify with John that number of trips.
Yeah.
To be more specific, I mean, as he stated, I mean, you have a trip in, a trip out, a trip in, a trip out. There's two round trips, so it's not many vehicles. We want to make sure that that number he's representing is accurate.
I think I understand the number. I think the
Yeah.
number goes to the peak hour, right?
Right.
So sometimes people come in, some distributions of
Right.
traffic comes in almost like a bell-shaped
Yeah, I was
curve.
looking at like a 2-hour window or something.
I don't recall the number of hours, but yeah, so that's what I think it is. So I think the additional trips that add up to the total are outside of peak
And it
time.
very well may be, but just maybe it just needs to
Sure.
be put on the record.
Okay.
Thanks.
Do we have any history of what we've done with, where an intersection has already failed and now
Well,
we're,
the intersection is not
It's not
failed.
failed, it's a C
level of
rating.
service C.
well, it said it warrants a turning lane already without this project.
Correct. As you've heard from John Canning in the past, DOT has recently changed their warrant analysis, and almost all, I think it's everything more than like 5 trips in a peak hour is gonna warrant a left turn lane. So, but if you'd like him to come in to speak to that, I don't mind bringing him in.
Well, if you could maybe just provide a narrative one,
Okay.
the history of those.
Following up on that, I also have questions otherwise. What are the alternatives? There's no discussion at all about warning signs on 17A, flashing lights on 17A, warning, hey, beware of traffic up ahead or whatever. I don't know what alternatives there might be available other than putting that third lane in there.
Yeah, I think some of the things in there, I understand, you haven't had a chance to review it, but he talked about making sure that, looking at the accident history of the last 5 years, right? Looking at the intersection sight lines for somebody making that turn, not just a school bus, but also a passenger car coming out, and also the stopping sight distances. And again, that's the time somebody needs to stop to get to that intersection. So, he had suggested that the applicant consider those and give you that information. So,
So that would consider stacking too for the left-hand turn.
stacking into or out of,
Into is what I'm concerned about.
so coming off of 17.
Right.
And just for the board, I believe I read it quickly, the traffic report. The 17A Industrial Drive intersection will go from, according to John's report,
C to a D.
LOSC to LOSD. So it will be longer waiting time.
And just on, also the fact that there's a warrant, and I don't know what that means. How pressing is that? How limiting is that?
I can either get that information for you, I could ask him to come.
I don't know what it means. I'm not sure about anybody else.
Probably best if everybody heard from your consultant what that means. Okay.
Other comments?
Just as before, we will submit as soon as possible. We're obviously, there is a time consideration on this, so we would be open and ready to serve students in the coming school year. So we will address the traffic issues, we will get the energy consumption figures. And also, the one thing I just would relate to the board, I know from our perspective of not being familiar with how a school bus operate, I mean, these types of facilities operate in Manhattan, in Westchester, some operated by student bus on much smaller parcels, so there is an art to it. And we will do our best to portray to you how that art works, to show you that this will, you know, it's certainly in their interest not to have parents calling, you know, screaming at them that their children aren't being, you know, picked up. So as one of those parents, you know, with school buses backing away. So we will, you know, present that to you to give you a better feeling of how this will operate during the winter months and to make sure that, you know, it goes and it doesn't impede any of the other property owners on Industrial Drive.
Well, one other question. Is there gonna be any kind of gate or security off of Industrial Drive for access into the parking lot? I'm only thinking as far as if there's nobody there 24/7, you know, the loss of catalytic converters or the like, you know, having all these buses, it's almost like going into a candy store. You know, everything's right there.
Yeah, that's a good opportunity to speak to the environmental aspects, and I think John said it well, the art of operating these kinds of places. It's a unique industry and everybody's hard up for space. So we have a terminal in Spring Valley that's 100% impervious coverage, vehicles all throughout it. It makes this look roomy. We get snow removal done. I completely understand the concerns.
That's not answering my question. The question was as far as security for the buses and access off hours for the public to get into that property.
We have 4 other terminals currently. 2 of them are fenced in. It's security based on the area being in Spring Valley. We wouldn't generally fence something like this in. We could be open to it. We operate in Monroe now. It's more vehicles. We're looking to split that in half. And we were fortunate not to lose any catalytic converters over there. And
Yeah, I'm just thinking, you know, obviously it's open all the way around. I'm not saying that the whole parcel should be fenced, but at least if somebody can't just drive in there with a pickup truck so they could load up your catalytics instead of walking them out up the side property line.
Well,
You
I
know.
believe you're gonna have security cameras, correct? Correct.
Okay,
So that is.
that's the kind of question I was asking.
Yeah, maybe it would help, and I don't know, if you had like an aerial picture of some of your other sites where you do have them, the buses stacked up more. I'm aware of other trucking places where they set up the trucks, first one out, second one, and all that. But I don't think most of us have seen that kind of a setup. And I think you probably are already doing that in other places.
yes, sir.
Any other questions for us? If not, thank you very much.
Very much. Enjoy the weekend.
Thanks.
Have a
Thank
happy
you.
holiday.
Thank you, you too.
Next item on the agenda is Lorden Enterprises LLC, Northern Bear Pet Food Supply, 20-1-39. We have an application for a site plan approval for retail and service businesses on 3.58 acres, New York State Route 17 M&HC zone, AQ3 overlay, and we're here tonight to consider a draft resolution. Welcome.
Good evening, everyone. Nick Rognetta from Peters Eckenfile Engineering. Like you said, this is the Lawton Enterprises LLC project. We recently went to the zoning board and received variances for off-street parking, and that was received at the April 1st meeting. We've addressed the comments of the town engineer, and tonight we're just here to receive the resolution for the project.
Thank you. Kelly.
So normally I send this to the applicant. I apologize, I didn't know Nick was on this, so I haven't sent this to him. So I ask if you want me to read it, so I will read the portions of it that I asked.
I would say yes.
Okay, sorry for the public, that they have to suffer through that. So I don't know if anybody had any changes on pages 1 through 3, but I'm gonna skip right down to the bottom of number 3.
Oh, I have one question on number 2. We listed the different plans.
Yes.
There was an as-built survey, August 16, 2024, that wasn't listed. There was a reason.
It's number 5.
Did I, that's the survey plan?
I put as-built
As-built
plan,
plan.
August 1, 2024. is that-
Different date,
And then there's one on August 2nd, 2024.
different date again.
Oh, is there one that I
There was
missed?
one dated the 16th
Of August?
of August.
All right, let me make a note and I'll confirm. 8, 16, because it could be that I wrote August 1st and it was supposed to be 16. 8, 16, 24, question mark. Okay. Rather than sort through what I have, check now.
The latest as-built here is October 2nd.
You know, this one right here.
I believe you, I'll just make sure I don't have to list it twice, 3 times.
That might be one and the same, you just pulled a different date off it.
Yeah, I might have just pulled up. I might have just typed 1 instead of 1/6.
Okay,
You just wanted to point out a typo. It's
that's it.
Okay. So then at the bottom of number 3, I had sent this out prior to having the zoning board decision, so I will fill that in from the zoning board's decision. There is a finding in bold italics that says, the building inspector determined that this property previously received site plan approval on January 20th, 1983, permitting a maximum of 15 parking spaces to be located in front of the building. Therefore, the planning board finds, due to the location, prior approval for the property and its existing improvements, compliance with the requirements in section 9714D1 regarding building placement would discourage the applicant from developing the property. And the planning board also finds that due to the location and topography for the property, compliance with the requirements in 9714D3A for a bike path and or sidewalk to be constructed within the landscape buffer would impose an unnecessary economic hardship on the applicant and would discourage the applicant from improving the property. Lastly, the planning board finds that due to the location of the existing structure, compliance with the requirements contained in section 9714D3 would discourage the applicant from developing the property. As a result of the above, the applicant need not comply with the provisions of the above cited code sections. And then down to the specific conditions. Number 1, all applicable conditions attached to the site plan approval from 1983. Just to be clear, that's the plan. I don't have an actual written resolution. So I'll put in parentheses there, plan, signed plan, so that we're clear. All applicable conditions attached to the site plan approval from 1983, signed plan, and 2011, and any subsequent amendments thereto are hereby incorporated into this resolution and are to remain in full force and effect, and this approval is subject to and conditioned upon satisfaction of those conditions as if they were set forth at length herein. Number 2, by this resolution of approval, the planning board is not approving the use of or the propriety of the location of the potential encroachments onto the adjacent lots, section 20, block 1, lots 37 and 38.3, including but not limited to the potential existing side yard encroachments of outdoor storage areas. Number 3, the applicant shall comply with the decision of the Town of Goshen Zoning Board of Appeals dated April 15th, 2025. Number 4, prior to the signing of the plans, the applicant shall comply with the memorandum of the town engineer dated November 27, 2024 to the satisfaction of the town engineer. Number 5, if an average of 25 individuals will be on site at least 60 days per year, the applicant shall be required to obtain Department of Health approval and provide such approval to the building department. Number 6, all light levels must be limited to 0.1-foot candles at the property line so no off-site glare will result. Fixtures shall meet IDA LEED or Green Globes criteria for nighttime friendly or dark sky lighting. Any wall pack fixtures shall include non-glare full cutoff shields. Number 7, the applicant shall be required to keep outdoor storage in an orderly manner. Now, I understand that there are a couple of items that Frank wanted me to specifically talk about.
Yeah, the building inspector could not be here this evening. He had a family matter to attend to, but he called me this afternoon. He asked that the board consider including in the resolution a condition regarding the removal of the log pile. That was a condition in 2011. He's not asking that it be removed, he's asking that it be in compliance with the fire code. He said he normally obviously would have that requirement as a condition of the building permit. However, he'd ask that you condition it as part of the site plan approval to make sure that that gets done and brought into compliance. The other item had to do with the RV. I know the building inspector spoke to you earlier about the RV. He asked me to look into it today. The RV has been there, it looks like, from the aerial images I saw this afternoon, for over 3 years. So he had asked for some additional clarification from the applicant as to how long it's going to be there, what the purpose of it is, and whether it could be perhaps relocated somewhere else on site or maybe off site.
Thank you.
You know about the RV?
Well, the RV is in a parking spot and she's trying to sell it.
It's been there for
How
3
many
years
years?
and 4 months. My aerial images don't go back any further than that, so.
Maybe you need to drop the price.
I did. You wanna buy it?
Perhaps it could be relocated to the rear of the site.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You'll have that conversation with the building inspector?
Is there anything in the town code that would prohibit parking of the, is it a trailer or an RV?
It's a trailer and it's in 2 parking spots on the side of my building.
Okay.
I think the building inspector's concern was the length of time it's been there. I know he's observed it being plugged in, so just, it's been there for an awfully long time. You have restrictions on outdoor storage and things of that nature. And again, he asked about the wood pile too. He'd like those taken care of, I think, before the plan is signed. Is that right? Correct. Okay.
So prior to, I'll include additional conditions, that prior to the signing of the plan, the log pile shall be brought into compliance with the New York State Fire Code, and that the RV that is currently located on site shall either be removed from the site or relocated to be behind the building in a legal parking space.
To the approval of the building
To
inspector?
the approval of the building inspector.
Excuse me, it is in 2 legal parking spaces and it's not plugged in.
I can only tell you what the building inspector told me.
Okay,
I'm not arguing with you.
It's my RV.
I'm just repeating.
It's not an RV, it's just a trailer.
Okay.
And I need to write this down. And that is all that I have.
I have one question on the general comments.
Yes.
I know they're pretty generic, but number 6 talks about a special permit.
Take it out.
Good, okay, that was easy.
I usually take them out when it's not there, but I didn't catch.
I just had a question about the number 50 people or whatever, that having to go to the department.
25.
25, I'm sorry. The question I had is what's that 25 number? Is that 25 employees or is that 25 customers? Because I think that store is going to definitely have more than 25.
It's based on 25 people, I mean, that are customers, no different than like a rest area. If it was 25 employees, it would rise to a higher standard, be a non-transient. This is just a non-community, it's the lowest level of public water supply.
I just want the applicant to be able to understand at what point that it's triggered.
Yeah, if they had 25 employees between the various uses within that structure, then with your permit with the Department of Health would then require you to have a water operator and much more additional testing, that you don't require at the level you're coming in at with 25 employees and customers combined.
I don't have that. I have 1 employee at a time and maybe 3 people at a time that come in.
Is that at a time or is that a day or what?
It's over the course of a day.
Okay.
And 60 days out of the year. That's it. Any other comments on the resolution from the board? If not, could I have a motion? Neil?
I would like to have connected to or attached to this the memos, whatever that were addressed or said that had to be in compliance. The memo for the engineer and the stuff from before. Otherwise, I don't know that the applicant's going to be able to go back and find those, whatever. So I just think for them to comply with it would be helpful.
I mean, it's up to the board. We've never done that for anybody else before. And they own the property, so they should have it. Or the building department could provide it.
Good. I just think the towns should provide for them in some way or fashion.
Through the building department.
That's okay. If the building department was going to do that for them, that's fine.
Or their own consultant probably has it.
Maybe. I don't know. I don't.
We have a few. It's been a long time.
He's like, I've been on this project for probably 10 years.
That being said, could I have a motion then to approve the amended resolution of conditional approval major site plan for Lawden Enterprises LLC, otherwise known as Northern Bear Pet Food Supply, as modified this evening?
I'll make the motion.
Marty, second by?
I'll second.
Eric, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Against? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Have a good night.
Happy Easter.
Happy Easter.
Take care.
Next item on the agenda is Solar Liberty Energy Systems Incorporated, 18-1-1.3. It's an application for a subdivision, site plan and special permit for a solar energy system on 58.9 plus or minus acres along Milburn Road, Moonlight Trail, Storms Road, in an RU zone with an HU 3-stream corridor and water supply, watershed, scenic road corridor overlays. And we're here to consider some study, visual vantage points.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Ari Goldberg from the law firm of Barclay Damon. With me tonight is Nicholas Vanbus from Labella Associates, who's helping out with that viewshed analysis we're here to discuss. And then John Hurley from Solar Energy Partners. That's the landowner and part of the development team. Appreciate that through the diligent review of Sean, we were able to come back here with a prepared viewshed map. And what we're hoping to tonight is present this to the board and then confer with the board on the most efficient vantage points from which we should identify in the map, and then we'll conduct further diligence. And that's after a long back and forth with Sean and Kelly about glare analysis, some comments from the board as well, and just our view overall. So what's before you is the viewshed analysis prepared by Nick and his team at Labella, and then maybe I'll come out around here, and maybe Nick too, and we can talk about the vantage points. You know, Nick, maybe a quick minute or so on exactly what this map shows and how it can help the board make a decision.
Sure, absolutely. Lovely to meet everyone. So we start with, this is all based on publicly available information. We use ArcGIS, and we kind of layer a few things into here. So we have the base map, we have topography based on publicly available LiDAR, and we have the project area input into the program. We took an offset of 1 mile from the project. So the red dashed line you have there is a 1 mile setback from the property boundary. Using the LiDAR topography, we're able to determine approximately everywhere within this view here where the site would be visible from off-site resources. This first figure is based strictly on topography. It doesn't account for any obstructions that may be present around the site. So this is literally just looking at the ground elevation, and so the pale kind of yellow color there would be locations around the site from which it would be visible. We also prepared.
So what you're saying is everything outside of that light green color or green colored,
Not visible.
yeah, between that and the red circumference there. It's not visible from any of those areas based on topography, that's what you're saying?
Based on topography only, yes. So like from this intersection, for instance, there's no direct sight lines to the site, but anywhere within this pale area.
The term you used was bare earth, right? It's
Bare earth.
no vegetation.
Right, you're assuming it's naked, right?
Yeah, great way to put that, yes.
Are you saying that those other look like islands out there to the right?
Yeah.
You could possibly see that from there? I doubt it, but otherwise.
In a bare earth condition, yes.
Wow.
But I think the second figure we have here will demonstrate. This is what's the term is first return, meaning when the LiDAR flights are overhead, this is literally the first thing it's picking up, whether that's vegetation or a structure, before the laser actually bounces back. So as you can see, the islands that were here north and east of the site are now not mapped.
because there is substantial vegetation that's obscuring that view. Same thing from the south. You see, like, it gets a little more scattered there because we're yes, and from the east as well. It gets a little harder to see when you account for the existing vegetation and structures. So there's less area from which we would expect there to be visibility from offsite. So it would be, you know, based on, we can leave both these up, and I think it's just maybe bringing them back and forth, or if I don't even get up from the chair and point on a spot you're thinking, but we'd love to just mark this up with a pen, and then we'll dispatch the Labella team to investigate those viewpoints for glare and visual.
You did already submit.
Yeah, we submitted one. We could bring that one out too if you want. That was before we ran the LiDAR view shed, so we wanted to just.
That was another comment. So
yeah.
I think the view shed's the right thing to do. I was surprised to get this without a view shed analysis, but I think the board needs to have that at least in their file.
That's this one, the preview.
No, absolutely.
No, you haven't gotten that.
There was an initial submittal, I want to say, whatever the deadline was.
It's like
third,
April 3rd that came
yes.
in.
Yeah.
So as long as you can email those in so that Grace has them for the building department.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we just finalized
Happy
it
to do
already,
so.
yeah.
Okay, no, I agree with Sean. I think this is great. I just want to make sure that we have it.
And then I think it'd probably be easier for the board, rather than give you specific vantage points, if you have the other vantage points that you've already submitted, if you could show them and see if there's any additional.
Not blown up, but I'll take the one, the 11 by 17 you had.
No, that's okay.
Does the board have this?
Yeah.
One of them?
Yes.
So yeah, this is the April 3rd submittal. These were, without a full LiDAR analysis, just spots we thought might be strategic to get additional view shed analysis. If you have it in front of you, it'd be helpful, you know, circle them if you like them, or compare them up against what Nicholas says here. Maybe some are eliminated. For instance, we had identified several on 17A, but as the view shed analysis is showing both first return and bare earth, it doesn't conclude that it's visible from 17A. Be happy to, if we need to confirm that via an actual image, that's fine as well, but looking for the board's direction in that regard.
I have a couple of points that maybe they could be modified from what you've suggested. I think that on Northgate, and I'll let you find that, it's towards the south of the.
Yeah, that's the subdivision here.
So you have 2 yellow dots on Northgate that probably are not applicable, but if you could take a view from between 12 and 14 Northgate.
Okay.
That is within the view shed.
Yeah, I think we had just done it from, let's get it from the end of the court to the middle and the beginning.
And
But just
then-
12 and 14 are the addresses already.
And then on some view, if it's somewhere between number 9 and 11.
What was the second number? I'm sorry.
Just somewhere between number 9 and 11. I think that's appropriate.
And that one was Summit View?
Yeah, thank you.
You see them?
Regarding the,
Locations.
well, you know, look, what we customarily ask of our applicants is to agree to a condition that there be a 1-year look back at the plantings, so that we can actually have the experience of that 1-year period of the actual, who's gonna see what, and in terms of the glare from the panels, and just letting you know, I would expect that I would ask that there be a 1-year look back. So if we miss something in the 2-dimensional analysis, we'll pick it up in the 3-dimensional analysis.
Maybe the 3D and the 4D, but I follow you nonetheless. I think we had talked about that previously. We have no objections to that sort of condition. We had worked on an alternate one, and then I think we struck on what is the town custom as you're identifying. And I was here when, I think it was Lightstar finished their review, and I know that, pretty sure that condition was on their approval as well. So we'd expect nothing else.
Tangential to all of this is the construction period itself, you would expect to be how long?
6 to 12 months.
Okay, so, and you'll be coming in through, is it Milburn?
Yep, Milburn is our access road.
Okay.
And we have it's an access road, tough to see on these maps, but if you're familiar with the site plan, there's an existing farm field, and then we're cutting it all the way across, including a wetland crossing after some discussion with the board to extend the access road. It goes all the way, sort of diagonally through the site to the
So
north.
what would be your larger, noisier vehicles coming in through Milburn?
During construction,
Yes.
typical construction vehicles, construction is temporary in nature, of course, and then during operations, it's just in the inverters as part of the array and the monthly maintenance. We had prepared a noise analysis as
Well,
part
I'll
of
tell you
prior
what I'm
comments.
concerned about, you feel free to answer it. If it's going to be a 6 to 12 month period, there's going to be early morning, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. is your anticipated construction.
Whatever, our construction is whatever the code permits us to do.
Well, it's.
Is it date to 8?
8 to 8 is what I read in your docs, in your submissions.
And I think, Sean, you've already pointed out the inconsistencies in that point, but we're permitted to construct whatever the code permits us.
And I'll restrict them to what they're allowed to do.
My comment is, let me make it simple.
Sure.
If you're coming in with heavy trucks, I think 8 a.m. might be a little bit early for that type of traffic over a 6 to 12 month period. I'd like to see any heavier vehicles not coming down Milburn before 9 a.m. so that the neighbors do not feel that, the neighbors feel that they've been properly represented.
Understandable. Let me check with the contractor's not here, but I can check with them on how they anticipate the scheduling and make sure that it does comply with that. Or for some other reason, if it doesn't, we'll make sure it's communicated to you in advance.
Okay.
So we talked about Northgate and Summit View, excuse me. We had also shown in this preliminary analysis several, I think there was one on corner of Reservoir, Northgate, that is technically outside the view shed. Then we went up Reservoir Road to Skolza Terrace in Reservoir. That came outside both the, looks like that was not on either, but then up Skolza, and I think we had talked about this before, was right at the intersection of Skolza and Milburn, and perhaps several along the residential houses on Milburn that are adjacent to the array. And that,
I have no problem suggesting that we eliminate all the viewpoints that you had shown that are outside your area. I have no problem with that.
so they merge these two things?
I'm okay
Call it
with
a day.
starting with that.
Sorry,
Except for-
can you sort of ballpark where it cuts off on the north side?
Yeah, I'm sorry, the north side of,
The sort of northeast side, where the view shed, like what streets are within and without?
oh, sure.
Yeah.
So this is, can I bring it up?
Yeah.
All right. So this is Skolza Terrace heading up here, and this is Milburn where we take access from. So I think what Mr. Halloran is proposing is anything, if you line up these two documents, any view that we've identified within the yellow is what we take. So for example, we proposed one on the corner of Skolza and Reservoir, which is right here. But that's actually outside of the view shed analysis. So we would only, for Skolza, we would only take the one here in the view shed, and then probably follow along Milburn for a few more here.
What is your level of confidence in the mapping?
In this, it's only as good as the data that we have, but we have no reason to inspection.
That's a good answer. That's an honest answer.
Spoken like a lawyer.
That's a nice.
I'll leave you with it. You got it from here.
Okay.
Specifically towards the northern,
Sure.
like, maybe it's easier if you look on the map. So like Storms Road.
If I could just jump in quickly on that.
Yeah.
Blair, north of this facility, is not going to be a concern whatsoever because of the way the sun travels through the southern part of the sky throughout the day, right? So you're only going to have potentially a concern with glare, basically to the east and to the west and maybe to the south. But we would automatically eliminate anything.
Is this just glare or is?
Yeah, visual impact.
Visual and glare.
Yeah, it's not just glare, like if the people on Storms can see nothing but the back of the panels.
Okay.
That's a concern as well.
Okay, I think there's two critical analyses going at once. One would be glare, which has been a nagging issue for the project, and then the second would be just the pure view shed straight through.
Correct.
Okay. So the view from Storms? Yeah.
So if, like, I don't even know what that road is off that tree that sort of goes right into it.
So yeah, this
Doesn't
is,
have a name.
Storms is, should
That's
run.
Moonlight, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, Moonlight is right here.
I think you have one at the top and one at the bottom. I was gonna suggest one in the middle.
Of Moonlight?
Yeah. I think you are looking right down at that array.
At the end of that road, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's not, the vegetation is pretty sparse right there, and it opens up into the field. I think it was used probably as farm access for a while.
Same on Milburn, right?
Milburn, at the main entrance?
You brought up North Cape.
Yeah.
Quick question, the elevations of all the houses around there, is it higher or lower than the site, or about the same?
It appears to be higher, which is why, they're included here in the visible area.
There is a bit of a ravine running through the site this way, so part of it, yeah, it's tough to see down. I mean, I think part of it, if it's visual impact assessment, they would have those elevation profiles, which I think we prepared before, but now it's coming from Stand 5, Labella, as opposed to the other submittal. So I think we can show what it looks
Yeah,
like.
the reason I ask is, if it's higher in elevation, and you have screening, it's gonna be a task.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's part of why taking these view sheds, because also we had concentrated landscaping really in the southern part, sort of, almost like a smile shape along the southern portion of the array. But maybe there's additional strategic points based on the view shed to bulk up or consider other ways to screen the array.
Yeah, I'm not a solar person, but is there a certain distance that you have to keep the height of the tree away from the solar field?
I don't know the exact height, but you have to ensure to prevent shading.
Right, yes. General rule of thumb, 75 to 100 feet to make sure that shading is an issue.
Depends on the height of the trees.
Yeah.
So, in the visual impact, you're gonna show visualization of what, putting the trees in there, like, give us, pretend you put the trees. Right. So my question there, and really I think is important along Milburn, is where you plant the trees, because you do go down in the ravine, it's at least, I think theoretically possible, you could plant a 10-foot tree and it still be below street level.
Sure.
So I think you really have to consider that, and maybe give us a 30-foot tree if you have to, but.
Yeah.
Okay, just.
Not necessarily a planting, but
whatever.
The idea would be 30 tree or some sort of combination of a fast-growing willow hedge or
Sure,
something
you
strategic.
have to give something that works.
Yeah, and I know.
Yeah, that's why I mentioned the elevation.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a task.
I think generally there's a slope downward from here into the ravine, and then this is the big hill. When we think that, we're hoping to get into the kind of detail of the glare analysis and the visual impact where, can you just see one row of the array? And if so, what do we do if we redesign that array to either remove that small panel or orient it a different way, such that we still capture the sun, but decrease glare and or visibility.
Yeah.
And that's why through the ironing out process and iterative review of a project, we're finally at a point where we want to get into that much detail and we have the team to do it. And that's in large part thanks to Sean's diligent review of everything. Am I hearing correctly that it's, maybe it's no oversimplification, but if we merge these two maps, those would be our starting viewpoints?
And I think Jeremy added 2.
Yep.
And then I think one more on Moonlight. Anybody else have any added?
Neil, I just want to circle back. I heard the word starting twice. You used the word starting, and the applicant just used it. They're to the point where they need to know because of the time of year, right? So you want to do this analysis when there's a week off, and I think they're probably going to get out there within the next week or two.
And the next week.
Yeah.
Spring is strong.
So
Yeah.
now's the time, right? So if they're on the border with something, I would send them out to get it now, because it's really going to be difficult for them to get an honest appreciation of what that visual looks like.
Over-inclusive at this time of year.
Jeremy, did you add the intersection of Summit View and Northgate?
I added close to that. I added slightly west of the intersection on Northgate, because you can see that when you're parked in front of the.
Yeah, you can try and just, oh, sure. I think, hear me identify, this is Summit View and Northgate here, and just a little west would be right around here.
Okay. Yeah, that.
Yeah. And that was, we had initially proposed 1, 2, 3 on Northgate, and I think the strategic compromise is basically right in the middle.
Okay.
But if you want more, now's the time to ask.
I'm okay.
No,
with
I'm good with that.
Yeah.
Seem very active.
And I want to thank you for these two. We've never seen it quite this well presented before.
That's great.
I don't
Somebody
recall.
brought someone up at I think the last meeting, where you were saying you're driving by and you say it's really, like, there's a lot of bushes, but it's actually just scrub. Is that, those are things like
Yeah,
three?
Dan had brought me up to speed on that issue. Is I think the glare analysis as prepared probably overassumed the height of the scrub brush along Milburn. It's probably a little
Okay, so
shorter.
those are
And there
the
is a
three.
weird, I don't know if the site is elevated or what, but I think that's part of why LaBella's team is here, to get those view sheds and get actual heights and get more accurate measurements. But yeah, that did make it to me, so
Just making sure.
fully understood it.
Okay, anything else?
One question. Are PFASs any part of the panels or any other equipment that are used? And if they are there substitutes for them so that you don't have these forever chemicals getting into the soil and ultimately the water systems?
PFOS and PFAS not a traditional solar concern. Everything's in a solid state in these panels. It's mostly glass and silica. And then another thing to think about, if it's helpful, is that this is an investment for the company. It's a money-making tool. So if a panel did break, it's in their best interest to send, through their remote monitoring, send someone from their operations team out there and place the panel, because it's no longer generating energy and no longer generating income.
So if you can just confirm.
Yeah,
yes or
absolutely.
no.
We usually provide, I don't know if it's a standard condition, but cut sheets of what is going to be installed for your records. We could also.
Exactly. Where are the panels coming from?
I don't even know if they've been purchased.
Are they
at
coming
this
from
time.
China?
That's the question. They're
A lot of them
likely.
I've seen China or Korea.
Yeah, they're likely coming from a Southeast Asian country or an Asian country where these are manufactured more heavily than in the United States or other parts of the world.
Is that an issue?
In what sense?
Tariffs.
Tariffs?
Well, as long as his bills are being paid, I don't know. But just so they know that you won't be able to have the PFAS stuff in your panels, so.
I have a question about the noise analysis.
Sure.
Are there gonna be any alarms within the property for malfunctioning equipment, or?
Not to my knowledge. No, it's usually the remote monitoring, picks up any issues, it's gated.
The reason I ask is, I had a neighbor call about a solar farm, Urbanski Solar, that they had a neighbor, a friend, that there was an alarm going off in there for like a week.
Oh, boy.
They didn't know who to call. I don't know if they called the building department, but I don't know if it was overheating equipment or what it was, but there was an audible alarm going off. So I would appreciate if, when you do the noise analysis, if there's alarms, you could include them.
Yeah, and I'll confirm if there are any alarms. It could be an issue, and I think I'm a little bit speculating just on that anecdote, but there is a point where ownership of the array transitions to the public utility, and the public utility is free to put.
They don't have any alarms.
No?
I do that for a living.
All right, so it was the developer.
He is the utility.
Urbanski Solar? I'll look him up.
I think
No,
we
that's good to know
also-
though, that it's us, and we'll confirm then if it is us, what it's gonna look like. And
No, I don't think it's you. I looked up who the original developer.
No, I mean, if it's us on this project, if we're gonna have an alarm
Yeah.
to ensure that there's a streamlined process to turn that off, because
I think
there
we
wasn't.
do have them
O&M?
install, hold that up.
Yes.
We do have them install emergency contact signs, at least here on the fencing. So if there's an alarm, somebody can drive up to the fencing and at least get a contact.
They did contact them, and it was a nightmare, to be honest.
That is not my problem.
They did contact them?
Yes, sir. It turned out to be a malfunctioning alarm, actually.
O&M plans
Alarm
require
itself.
it.
Yeah.
Because usually that also has.
In that one, there is an alarm.
And it was making their life miserable.
And the building department.
I've never heard that question. I'll
So do
confirm
they
that, Mr.
hop the
Holmes.
fence and smash it? Not that I'm suggesting they do.
Of course not.
Well, one
Stay away from electricity.
probably
I would.
attributable to my ignorance, but in your sound report, in section 6.0, you have 79 dBA.
Doesn't
But
sound
in
like
your
an ignorant question.
conclusion, you have 34 to 44 dBA. They're probably two different things. I'm not a sound engineer, if you can just clarify that for us.
Sure.
I'd appreciate it.
Considering I walked into a trap with Mr. Holmes, I'll respond to that.
By the way, watch out for Mr. Fuentes.
All right, we have some homework to do. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank
Have a good holiday.
Yeah, no, as well.
Good night.
Nice job, Billy.
Always a joy.
I'm not gonna use Google, whatever, and I get it.
You too?
I spent all afternoon.
Yeah, you're playing around with it, like, hey, yeah, I know.
Next item on the agenda is Wood Subdivision 3-1-39. We have an application for a small-scale subdivision on 27.2 plus or minus acres along Sour Wells Trail, County Route 8, Victoria Terrace in the Village of Goshen. RU Zone AQ3, AQ6, and Scenic Road Corridor overlays. We're here this evening with revised plans. Welcome.
Hello to the board, I'm Juan De Jesus with MJS Engineering. I just did want to start off just with a comment from last meeting. This was one of the plans requested, I believe Jeremy had requested it, just to have that close look of what's existing there. So we did provide this, and I just wanted to point out, I believe it was Eric pointed out that asked if access was needed to the existing barn that's here on the site. So I did look into the fire code, and it is exempt from the regulations. It says that agricultural buildings, including farms, sheds, poultry houses, and other buildings and equipment on the premises that are used directly and solely for agricultural processes shall not be subject to the construction-related provisions of this code. So that's just a no, it doesn't need it.
But I believe that's an indoor riding arena, and so it's not necessarily exempt if there's gonna be outside people in it. So if they're gonna plan on having any shows or anything like that, it loses the agricultural exemption, I believe. So just, however they intend to use it later on may impact that.
Okay, I'll confirm with the applicant.
Neil, just so I understand, that is because of public occupancy of it, or is it?
Actually, it gets really funky fast.
Okay, maybe we can talk later.
If they come there to take lessons on your horses, that's agricultural. If they board their horses there and they ride their horses, it's okay. However, you can't come in for the day, bring your horse in and then ride it and then go home. That becomes an issue.
Okay, understood.
And that's what it was when I was in there, so we may have to check with Frank on that, but.
But I think you're maintaining access.
Yeah, there's access, yeah. Just that it was asked if there had to be fire access to the fire code standards was the last meeting. But the access will remain.
But I thought the only access to it right now is from Sarah Wells, and it's gonna be on two different parcels then.
Yeah, we will revise plans and come back. There is going to be a small change to the plan. The owner, after looking at the plan, he's decided to actually put a smaller house on the plan. So this house is shrinking in size.
No longer a 5-bedroom?
No longer a 5-bedroom. It's going to be more to this, to 4-bedroom size. And then this lot line is actually just gonna go up here, and he's gonna keep his home. He doesn't wanna move anymore. This is all gonna be one lot. But that happened after, we submitted plans and everything. He came to that realization. But the next plan you receive will show that.
So he's gonna keep
Well, if it's
the
one lot,
barn
then
too?
the access is no.
Yeah.
There's no issue.
Yeah. So,
Sean?
Sure. Warren, are you finished?
I had some comments to your comments, but I don't know how you guys want to handle it.
I don't have any preference whatsoever. It's their preference.
I'm sorry, Sean.
In that case, we'll have Sean raise the comments,
Yeah.
and one of you can respond to them.
Perfect. So I don't know if I'm gonna hit on what Juan wants to talk about, but I'm just gonna give you a rundown of my most recent comments. So this was last before you in January. At that time, you declared your intent to be lead agency and classified this as unlisted at seeker action. It's small scale and it's a minor subdivision. Keep in mind your code requires a public hearing for a minor subdivision. Keep in mind that under seeker, you need to complete seeker before you have a public hearing for a subdivision. There's the issue of rear lots, which I recommended you discuss with Frank and/or Kelly. Maybe Kelly can discuss that tonight in Frank's absence. Lot two is actually the center lot, which is the largest lot right now. I think that may be zero frontage, and I think it may need variances under 280A of town law and 736 of village law. Again, Kelly will guide you in that. There's a requirement, if it is a private road, that it meets town road specifications. Juan indicated he reached out to the clerk and has not received those. That's because the town does not have any private road specifications. What I believe the town has done in the past is made applicants build it to the lowest classification of a town road, which would be a rural street in this case. The applicant's proposal for their private road exceeds the town road specifications for a rural street in all matters of composition, but not in terms of the width. They're proposing a 12 and 18-foot wide road. Your town rural street is a 20-foot wide. We can talk again later whether that requires variance also. You received a new ag data statement. Just a reminder to Grace that she needs to mail out to those people listed on that statement. And in terms of seeker, they heard back from DEC, who's recommending a parcel jurisdictional determination. Keep in mind, as of January, DEC changed their wetland laws, so it's a little bit different processing than what we've done in the past. And also, SHPO is requesting a phase 1A, 1B for potential archaeological impacts.
And as far as the access from the village, what have we gotten back from the village?
They need to go to the village.
They need to go, so
Yeah.
as far as the entry road and everything like that, that's still up in the air as well.
Yeah, the 7736 variance I spoke about, I think this board is used to hearing a 280A, which is
Right.
a town law. The 736 is a village law equivalent to that.
Okay.
So they would likely need to get a variance from the village ZBA for that, if the village determines it's necessary.
That's what you have, so it's yours.
Okay. Thank you. So Frank's not here. There's a discrepancy just about the lot area, about actually being in the schedule, we have it at 654, but actually on the plans, this is for lot 3, we have it as 6.75, and that'll be corrected in the next submission. It is the 6.75, that didn't include the actual access area for lot 3 that exists on lot 3, so that will be updated. That was just an error on our part. As far as the lot having frontage, like Sean had pointed out, that lot 2 doesn't actually have any frontage along the private road. So it was asked that we would discuss that with Kelly tonight. And just part of what the code actually states, standard for small scale development states, each rear lot shall have either a minimum frontage of 25 feet on an unimproved public or private road and an access strip as defined in this chapter, or a deeded right-of-way easement over other lands providing legally adequate and physically practical access to a public or private road. So I was recommending that just in this case, since we do have we have that access, this easement going to that private road, that we just put the road frontage is not applicable in this case.
So my take on it, and again, it comes back to Frank, But my take is that, yes, they meet the definition of meeting the rear lot requirement for the deeded right of way. However, they still don't meet the frontage. They don't have frontage on any road. So that's where I think the 288 variance comes into play here.
Here's the recall, you just did this with Gotham properties, so it's kind of, they're in the same boat.
There is a section of our code, and I don't remember where it is, where the town declared some parts of the town open to 288. Like we don't need, there's no need to go through 288.
Yeah, that's, they don't comply with that right now, and they haven't demonstrated that. But if they thought that they did, like Sean just said, they still need to go to Frank.
Okay, I don't remember where it is in there. It's a weird spot.
It is, but good memory.
So, Sean, for private roads, are there minimum width requirements?
So your code sends the applicant to the town street specifications. When you go through the town street specifications, there is no private road street specification. What you've done in the past is required applicants to put the lowest classification of a town road, where there is a width requirement. So part of that, if they do go for a variance, I think part of that variance would be to get the variance from the 20-foot width.
And are there requirements for, or do we, and if there aren't, do we want to require turnouts, and they have to have turnabouts adequate for fire service?
Yes, that's in the New York State Fire Code, and they've provided those. The only thing I've asked them to do is just make sure that they have them dimensions, because there's dimensional requirements associated with those in the Fire Code, just so Frank can say, yes, this meets the requirements. But yes, they've shown them.
Now, are these roads going to be paved or gravel or
The
what?
plan shows them paved right in.
Does it have to comply with the minimum town standard as far as base material, everything?
They exceed that right now, but yes, it will,
Okay.
yeah. What they've done is they've used what I understand is the Village of Goshen street specification. They've carried that through, which, yours is a minimum requirement, and they're going beyond that right now. That's in terms of composition.
Just also on this point for if there is a variance needed. So if you guys do say that the road frontage is not applicable, or honestly, we could just extend this right away straight to the property. That's also an option if the board would rather us do that, but.
One, it's not up to the board. I think you need to go back, look at the code, talk to your client. If you need determinations from Frank, write it up, and
Yeah.
Frank will get back to you.
So Frank, okay.
Well, I think it's you and your client, and then Frank.
Yeah, you prepare the plan, they review the plan, that's all.
Yeah.
They don't design the plan. They're not gonna tell you to do something. This is the plan that you brought forward.
Okay.
But what I'll tell you is that my next advice to the board is to say your next steps would be to go to the ZBA to get their initial feedback and to go to the village, because you're gonna wanna get the village's feedback on what they're gonna allow that parcel in the village to be used for in terms of access.
So when we went to the village initially, they didn't have any concerns on that, using that road as an access. Oh, it's the wrong one. This was actually the email we got from the board. And they just said that at this time, because all the lots are in the town, our suggestion, should your client wish to proceed, is that you make formal application to the town planning board at such time as the secret review process has commenced and the subdivision plans have become more fully developed, incorporating comments from the town consultants. It would be appropriate for you to make formal applications to the village planning board. So they have seen the plan. I don't know how.
I think they're asking you that to come back at a later
Yeah.
date. I think you're at that point.
You're at
So
that
this,
point.
we're saying we're at that point.
You're at that point.
Okay.
Does it matter whether they're looking at this drawing or the revised site plan? Because, I mean, this isn't the plan that's being proposed.
I think in terms of access, though, I don't think it changing any of the access for those two lots through the village.
They're just gonna wanna know though, like, if all of a sudden they're saying, oh, we're not doing 3 lots, we're doing 20, they're gonna wanna know
Right.
how many lots, but.
So-
But, and while that's going on, this board would then be considering a part 2 and continuing on. But that would be my advice to the planning. I feel like I just keep spinning around.
Quick question. Now, every time I see a project like this, it scares me because, you know, you're talking about egress and access roads and private roads, and everybody forgets about utilities, okay? So everybody is very concerned about egress and getting in and out, and no one thinks about utilities. Now that he's moving that lot line over, right? You have lot 2, I believe, is just sitting there, right? So I just would make sure that whatever access you have to whatever private roads, that it includes utility easements. Okay, because what you're gonna have is a problem down the road. Because maybe all these people are one family, but they sell the lots off, and then after they're sold, and they can't get power to the lots. So just make sure that whatever you have as far as access, it includes utilities, that's all.
Absolutely. So on that other point for a variance as far as the road width, I mean, we have nothing against meeting town standards. The only reason that this road here is actually at, I believe it's 12 feet in width at that point, is simply because we're going through Army Corps of Engineers wetlands. So we were just trying to minimize the disturbance as much as possible. Even in the DEC standards and their design handbooks, they even mentioned going below the town's required standards for concrete and asphalt pavement just to affect the environment less. So that's the reason we're just going through there. And as for the need of a variance, everything, the codes that are applicable in this case go to subdivision and then also roads and sidewalks are the 2 sections of code. So it seems like it could be handled in a design waiver since none of this comes from the actual zoning code. If the board would be open to a design waiver in this instance.
Come on, write it down, talk to your client,
Well,
submit it to Frank.
okay.
Okay, thank you.
I think it's important to know what the village is gonna require too.
Yes, yeah, there's,
I'll underline that one the next time I say it as well.
yeah, and it's tough for the applicant, you know, on this, you know, where do you start? And sometimes you get different, yeah.
Yeah, that is difficult.
I think we're right, and I think we're at the point where you should go back to the village.
I agree. You've started seeker, they know the potential impacts, one is aware of the wetlands at this point, where the limits are there, so.
Yeah. Just another point. It was requested for additional photos and cross-sections were requested just so the board could see the visibility of the site. And we have provided photos. We could provide a cross-section, but we really would just like to have the planning board come to the site to see. It was requested for a site visit the last time. I think if the board came out, because the locations of the houses are actually staked, and that would clarify any doubts as to the visibility of this site.
I'm gonna give you a little bit more background on this, because it's a little more complicated. So, Sarah Wells Trail is a scenic road, right? And your code, as you're familiar with, has certain requirements for site plan approval for certain structures over certain square footage along the scenic road corridor. The dwellings are outside of the scenic road corridor, okay? Your code also has something else in there that you normally don't get involved in too much. It says if it's over 5,000 square feet of clearing or grading is visible from the scenic road during the winter, then the applicant needs site plan approval. The applicant provided a photograph from the existing driveway in Sarah Wells Trail and also from the one in Victoria. I don't know if that's enough to make that determination. However, if site plan approval is required, it's better to know it now than when they start doing that clearing and grading and stop work orders issued because they don't have site plan approval. Right now, they're just in front of you for subdivision approval. They could just go ahead and say, you know what, it may be visual and we're gonna seek site plan approval at this time. It's up to them. And so they've given you 2 photographs. I think they're asking you, rather than provide more photographs, to come to the site. But I just want you to realize why you're there, or one of the reasons you're there.
And if you want to do a site visit, like usual, I would say coordinate with the building department. Since they're staked, I think if there's some days that Grace could send out that with the applicant says these are good days, she can send that out and you guys can respond.
What else do we have, Juwan?
So there was a question we have put in for the jurisdictional determination that has been submitted, and then we actually did receive a letter back from the DEC, gave us a letter, and in that letter it does state that there are no water bodies that appear on our regulatory maps at the location that you identified. So really, we're just looking at Army Corps of Engineers, and that's already been submitted to them, the joint application, and it's under review by the Army Corps of Engineers. So I will submit this in my next submission, but just,
Juan, I just want to make sure, did you receive the April 11th letter from the DEC?
That's the one who's.
That's the one that's up on the screen.
He's saying under
Okay.
the protection of water is the first.
Yeah. Above it, they say, to determine whether the property contains regulated freshwater wetlands, the project sponsor must submit a request for a parcel jurisdictional determination.
yeah, I know, and I actually did submit that on March 20th, and, you know.
DEC.
To DEC, I got this email from the DEC that said you have successfully submitted the request,
Okay.
and then we got that letter later, so it has been submitted.
Okay, the letter was in response to my circulation.
Okay, that's good to know. So there might be another letter coming. And then as well, we did receive a letter from SHPO. They have requested a phase 1, phase 1A, and phase 1B. And we have, our client, our applicant has a contract with Tractor Archaeology, and they are preparing those studies to be submitted back to SHPO.
Do we know when they'll have that?
I'm not exactly sure on the timetable.
It's the first one they've asked for something in a while.
What else do you have?
That's it. That's all I have. The easements, we have them being worked up at Peter Body here in Goshen, so we'll have those soon for the board as well.
Other comments from the board?
Not at this time.
Sean, anything else?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, in that case, well, you know what you need to do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
I know that we already
Maybe, if you need to resubmit they actually removed.
It's one side and the Next item on the agenda is 114 Hartley Road Battery Energy Storage Site, 12-1-2.3. It's an application for an amended site plan approval for a special permit for a Tier 2 battery energy storage system on 31.2 plus or minus acres along Hartley Road in HC, CO zones, and AQ6 floodplain ponding, stream corridor, and water supply, watershed battery energy storage overlay district overlays. We're here tonight for an initial presentation and to begin the secret process.
I'm gonna recuse myself.
You as well.
Well, I hope you guys have good Easter.
Just want to sit down here. They want to know what the next projects are from Sean.
I can tell
We
you
could
now.
go on.
Hey, we have to sit here.
It's a rough crowd.
Oh, terrible. Okay.
We're good?
Oh, you're great.
All right.
It's all yours.
My name is Travis Rosenkrantz from Creighton Manning. Good to see everybody again. It's been a little bit of a hiatus since I've been down here. We also have Terrence Nolan, project developer with New Leaf Energy, and also Zachary Long, project engineer with New Leaf Energy. As mentioned by Mr. Burgess, we are here for the initial presentation for the amended site plan approval for battery storage on a parcel located off of Hartley Road. The parcel is currently owned by TAM Enterprises and is currently being is used for a construction site, storage site. There's our existing buildings. I go through a bunch of other features on the site, but
they're identified in various documents that were submitted to initiate this process, so I don't want to regurgitate everything.
There are some inconsistencies in the documents as far
No,
as the
no.
number of buildings.
You're jumping on my presentation? No. So I'll jump on that right now. We had 4 days to put the application together, so we appreciate Sean's thorough comments. It did identify some inconsistencies, which we acknowledge. Won't argue with them. So, as far as the site itself, it is kind of nestled back in the upper left, page left, northwest corner, away from wetlands, wetland buffer, 100-year, 500-year, and also the stream corridor. The stream corridor, we did confirm, is more located in this particular area, but we're prepared to show that on updated documents. Some other specifics, we are prepared to address Sean's comments in a formal resubmission, and we'd like to have the opportunity to clarify several comments made prior to doing that. But I'll give another quick little summary that may help the board understand where we're going. Entrance to the site, everything's going to use existing gravel, existing asphalt. There's a statement in the project narrative that we are potentially improving the existing access, existing paved surfaces. That statement was known before was made before we positioned the battery storage in the rear. The improvements are more to provide the turnarounds at the battery storage areas. So there's going to be a little bit of grading and removal of gravel. That's an important thing to note. We're hovering around that 1 acre of disturbance. Because we're so close, we're going to prepare a full SWIP. But based upon the site plan and the grading, we will be removing, there'll be a net removal of pavement. There's some gravel in the background that will be replaced with vegetated grass because we're really going to sever the connection to this back storage area, which is another note within the review. I think we have the dimensions already, 89 by 99, all within existing impervious surfaces. So we're finding that that's advantageous for the site. One important note that we'd like to clarify is, and I may ask for Terrence on backup on this, this parcel is an approved, the use is an approved use for the parcel zoning, and it has been identified by Orange and Rockland Utilities as a
desirable site for a non-wire alternative, really because of a demand reduction, which is what this will provide during the peak summer months. So this won't be a battery. So the size of these batteries, I'll just add, is these are 5 megawatt size batteries each. There are 2 of them proposed, 4-hour at this point, 4-hour batteries, and really where they come online is during those summer months, and they are a source of constant load relief during those peak time periods. But they also, there are 2 solar arrays, for example, as you know, on Owens Road, not far down the road from where this site is located. So sort of from a decarbonization point of view, the 2 kind of connect together in that way that they are, as the solar is coming into the system, it's sort of an intermittent, depending on the day, depending on the clouds and the yield. The batteries are online, making sure that there's a local source to deal with the demand that comes in during that time period.
Mr. Chairman, can I just interrupt real quick? The supervisor just read me, he said that maybe the applicant should rearrange the displays so that public can see them at home and in the audience. So I don't know the best way to do that, I'm just,
Like that.
I don't know.
would be best.
Is that camera there, the white one? So I guess turn them about 90 degrees.
Let's go. Here comes the expert.
That's not big.
Speaking of supervisor.
All right, you gotta move the camera over here, so you're good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Neil, do
You
you
gotta start over?
So really, I mean, as far as the summary, I mean, that's really what we have. We consider it a really good opportunity to supplement the storage area, the storage of electricity in the area. Again, we acknowledge that there's some discrepancies and inconsistencies. The one thing we do want to point out is we're proposing the point of interconnection down here in an existing pole. That arrangement is still being communicated with O&R, so we're really in the preliminary phase of advancing that. A key kind of a leapfrog into that is we're prepared to offer visual sims, photos, cross sections of that particular area to address concerns raised in the letter. And we're going to ask the question as far as confirming what angle you'd like to see that as, and maybe we present that to you, confirming what angle you would like to see that visual sim at. Because we do have the O&R transmission line going down through here with some very large, much larger poles existing, and then also an ancillary service that runs down the public road. So
We also have the Heritage Trail that traverses.
Yes.
Right through, that's.
We're familiar with that trail.
Yeah.
I'm glad.
Okay. There's a road crossing at that
Yeah,
point.
right.
yeah.
Yes. So one thing with that, with the Heritage Trail, is there is a good size tree, I'll say finger, that does shelter the existing operations. I'm just pointing that out. It extends all the way to here. So that is providing some good screening, but we recognize that the town may have some concerns or would like a supplemental information.
There
as
and
far
also
as-
where Hartley takes the bend, takes that jog,
Yes, right.
also looking diagonally back.
Correct,
to-
this way.
Sorry.
So I think we would be good to offer
Absolutely.
several areas from there.
Is Tam going to continue his operation on this property?
Yes,
Definitely.
yes,
That's what I figured.
yes.
Security an issue for you?
It will be fence locked, gated. So, which will all be documented with forthcoming submissions, and we're prepared to go through all the decom and estimating and all of that in a further discussion. Another piece of information I think we're looking hopefully for some clarification is we recognize there's a requirement for a 100-foot buffer from the storage, 100-foot wooded buffer. The existing operations of the parcel have, I don't have a timestamp on this, but there is no wooded buffer in that area. To the north is an actual permanent conservation easement that's owned by Orange and Rockland. So we're prepared to address that, but would look for some direction prior to our next submission on looking for clarity on how that 100-foot buffer would be obtained, or we look for a variance on that, because that's a pretty substantial area if we need to plant trees. That was,
What are the dimensions of the, what are the dimensions?
each one is 89 by 99, so we'll multiply that by 2 with some separation. So we're looking at probably 200 width by 99 depth.
And the height?
Less than 15, but that's proprietary based upon but typically less than 15.
And the color?
Right?
Fuchsia. We have photos, we can still sample batteries. They're typically, yeah, they're gray.
This may be what you were talking to Sean about, but the fact that there are 20 rectangles in the plan, is that the error?
So, no, so because we received the plans and tried to be aggressive and get the process going, I'll take it on the chin. We had some data that was incorrectly stated. The zoning, we had it as an RU, the entire parcel is a commercial.
I think you may be going somewhere.
Yeah, but no, but that's.
It's just like one rectangle in each side, right?
So the this is the full rectangle. These are the actual actual storage units themselves. So you have a gravel pad.
They're gonna need to give you an equipment pad detail,
Yes.
so you know what each box represents.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, because it looked like each of those rectangles was about the dimensions of one of these containers.
Yeah, I was trying to
Yes.
figure it out myself.
Yes. And we're prepared to give that on a supplemental based upon our experience. So that will be clearly identified with the acronyms and what the typical dimensions are for the transformer or the inverter, the batteries, whatever is on that equipment pad. I'll defer that to the energy experts.
Great. And it just, this isn't really information that this board needs to ingest, but people are probably curious. Is the business arrangement between New Leaf and, do you provide a service to Orange and Rockland, or are you buying power when it's cheap and selling it when it's more expensive and arbitraging? Like, what's the business model of this?
I'm gonna deflect that.
Yeah, I'll just, so NYSERDA, the Public Service Commission asked NYSERDA to detail an implementation plan for 750 megawatts of these batteries in upstate New York. And that was published in September last year. And so this is treated like community solar in terms of incentives. So they're actually going to be releasing a megawatt block, which is an incentive block for these types of things in May, middle of May. So this will be the first one. It'll be 150 megawatts in size. So, and it'll be $175 per megawatt hour. That's sort of the dollar amount of what's being. It's after the 150 is used up, then it goes to 150 megawatts. So the answer to your question is that this is going to be pushed into. There is a delta between when they charge at night and the peak, essentially the electricity during the peak hours. There's the demand reduction value that comes through the meter stack that's like incentivized as part of it. There's also an incentive offset on the capital cost of putting it in. What I will say is that, and you didn't ask this question, but it may be of interest to know what the demand may end up being for these types of things coming into the town or into Orange County. And because of the cost of electricity, that's obviously makes it Orange and Rockland an attractive place to locate a battery like this. But there's also a demand contract. There's a demand contract price that is charged that we have to pay when we're actually charging the batteries at night, which is quite high. So what ends up happening is that most of these are going to probably be more in national grid territory, not as much, especially as the megawatt block declines. So I don't think you'll see as many of these as you've seen solar, for example.
Yeah. Okay. But it sounds like the state feels that there's a public interest in having these deployed.
They offset the need to trigger these peaker plants that have more. So even though they're charging at night and they're picking up the energy mix at night, that could very well be natural gas. It offsets those the high demand, dirtier plants that come online to meet those summer months.
Where are you charging these from? Where?
From the grid, so it looks like a customer to Orange and Rockland at night.
And how long does the charge hold?
So the next day, it'll be especially in the summer. These will likely only be deployed during the summer months.
What happens in the winter?
Unless there's they can be set up for that, but the demand and the reason that they're valuable is because of the 60 or 80 day time period in July, August, and early September, or late June.
Do we have sufficient experience to know if there are any safety issues?
We do, and we have a firm that which will come in and present on those issues. They're called ESRG. They're on the governor's interagency task force to update the fire code. Because as you may well know, there was a fire in Warwick, there was one in the town of Jefferson, there was one out in Long Island, all happening around the same time, a couple years now ago. I live in Warwick. That was a power and battery near the school bus storage area. So in any event, there will be a emergency response plan that will be provided. We've reached out to the fire chief just to begin a dialogue about it because of the concerns that come up. But I guess the short answer is that there's been there was a pause on development of batteries when that all happened. The technology has been upgraded to address those concerns, and then there are fire code recommendations which have not, the fire code has not been amended to take these on, but our proposal will include all of the proposed and suggested recommended changes to the fire code.
Okay, I'm gonna have the same question I had for the solar codes. Are there any forever chemicals used in connection with the materials that constitute your system?
So we are going to have, as it hazardous
hazard mitigation analysis done for the site.
Yeah, hazard. So we will have a detailed inventory of what's in these batteries presented in the form of a hazard mitigation analysis to answer your question.
Okay.
Will that, I'm sorry to interrupt, will that also include any fire suppression systems?
That'll be covered in the emergency response plan.
No, I meant in terms of any of the toxic chemicals that may be incorporated into the fire suppression system.
Yes, we will.
So that'd be, the fire suppression system would be analyzed in the hazard?
Yes.
Thank you.
I've got a couple questions. You're done, Phil? For now?
Yes.
Yeah, for now. On the plans,
Yes,
I'm gonna be jumping around, got a bunch
absolutely.
of stickies all over the place.
That's all right, I'm ready.
It's an energy storage system description, capacity 5,000 kilowatt AC. I mean, aren't there two 5,000?
There's two 5,000 megawatts,
I mean,
5 megawatts, 5,000.
Because it only talks about one throughout that whole
Cover
narrative.
page, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, the description. That was one item. In your notes, just a reference to things like racking and trenches, stuff like- is that for like solar farms?
That's more solar.
That's a carryover from
Yes,
solar
that's a
farm?
carryover, yeah.
Okay.
I'm getting beat up.
Oh, I haven't started yet.
Oh, I know.
There's a typo,
doesn't-
you know he will catch it.
He doesn't
Yeah.
know me.
Oh, I know, I think that's right.
I think you've been here for half of my time.
No, I expect it with the first edition.
The access into the property is the same access TAM has, and they have a gated entrance.
Correct.
Uh,
We're not, yes.
For emergency vehicles, obviously, any of the emergencies that might happen on TAM's property, maybe they already have it set up at the fire department and other emergency services. But as far as having access through that security gate, a Knox box or whatever that they have access to, because now what you're putting in could be even a potentially higher risk than, a different risk.
Yes,
And
we'll
your food storage
confirm,
and stuff like that.
our intentions are to advance at least a truck turning template, kind of piggybacking off your comment, a truck turning template for the existing hatched area that you see now, and then also to supplement with the Knox box code, locations of the Knox box, so.
You had mentioned at the beginning of your presentation, it's going to be on an impervious, that whole area within the fenced area?
Correct.
Impervious? And I'm just a little confused. Is it concrete? Is it asphalt? Because the details showing underneath the boxes, underneath the storage units, reinforcement. So to me, concrete comes to mind.
Underneath is an actual concrete pad, typical rebar, so the structural engineer provides that separation, pole length, all that. There's a separation between the units, and on the outside, that has a gravel. So it's not immediately just concrete to lawn, vegetated. There is a little bit of gravel that surrounds it. Yeah.
But there's concrete underneath all the units, and then along with that, inside that enclosure is gravel where you don't have units. Or is it concrete right to the limits of the fencing?
It's not
That
concrete.
200 by 100.
It's not concrete throughout the entire.
Not the, yeah,
Just the pads where the
Just the
equipment's being
pads with
mounted?
batteries
Correct.
And the rest will be gravel?
Other equipment.
but the impervious surface that we're calculating includes that gravel.
You're treating the gravel as impervious?
Correct.
Okay. In your, this document here with the lithium ESS container information, it talks about the optional water spray system for fire suppression. Are we proposing that? And if so, where's the water come from? Where's that being stored?
We'll have to look into that. That is a potential, one of the potential batteries that we may be using, but it's, we're still deciding. which one.
Okay, so it's not necessarily even.
Yeah, that's just an example that we.
Okay, well, I guess hand in hand with that, two questions. The sensors for the LEL, lower explosive limit, smoke, sensors go bad. How do you know, is there something that diagnoses that, or are they changed on a regular basis, the sensors within those units?
I believe that it's called a battery management system, that basically it acts like a SCADA system that gives a signal of one of these sensors.
So it's going to advise you when it's getting weak or below a certain threshold?
Correct.
And then you say also that the site, due to cybersecurity risks, commission daily operations are performed by the customer or an authorized third-party controller. What exactly are we referring to? Because it's not a manned operation.
Correct, it's a third party that does the cybersecurity for, so you typically hire someone else to do that management.
So is that done remotely as well through
Yeah,
SCADA?
it's done remotely.
We're getting ahead of ourselves here, but the decommissioning plant, we're already taking apart the system.
Okay.
The length of the perimeter fence is being 600 some odd feet. So we got over 800 something feet based on your geometry. And you're saying the number of power poles that would need to come out is 6, but we're showing 12, assuming that pattern stays.
So it should be two separate decommissioning estimates, one for site one, one for site two.
Okay, so, okay, you treated them separate, okay.
Yeah.
I gotta see that, okay. That's it for now.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
You help stimulate. Will the best units require cooling during the summer? And if so, where's the energy coming from?
I'd have to check the spec sheet, but I'd have to defer to you, depending on the model.
Yeah, we'll have a subject matter expert on the battery. That's not a question I'm gonna try to answer.
Okay.
But the answer is, there's a coolant, yes, they will be cooled, and I'll explain how that happens.
Okay.
I'm easier. If I don't know, I'm
Civil
gonna give it to the
engineering,
person that knows it, so.
Other comments from the board? Neil?
I just have, but number, but obviously, I think my whole concern is in the area of safety, and I think that a while back, in fact, it may have been your prior projects, and we had some battery expert show up, and it was phenomenal, explaining batteries and all the issues, and the different types of batteries that might be used, whatever, so I'd love to see that again.
Yep.
So I do have other questions, like, obviously, we had the thing in Warwick, whatever, so kind of the question out there is what prevailing winds might be and which direction things might blow if there was an issue, and what's the distance is to Tam's business enterprises, his office personnel, what's the distance to the closest residences, and the jail, what, if any, special needs will the fire department have to have that they may not have the equipment already around or the supplies already around. And I'd seen somewhere, and I don't know where it was, I'll be honest, where the responsibility of the project is to be able to respond within 15 minutes of an alarm and be at the site within 4 hours. That's what I saw. And so I'd like to have the whole thing be discussed. How long you expect the fire department to babysit the project, if at all. It's going to be very expensive and tedious for the fire department to babysit for 3 days. So just anything revolving around that you can help us out with. This is our first one. We had batteries before and then they dropped off. So we're back. This will be our first batteries thing at all. I have a lot of questions.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, is it all right if I answer a couple of those questions?
By all means.
So as far as the nearest residence, it's over 700 feet to the north. It's on the other side of O&R. So the separation to that is fully forested, vegetated.
So that's between Chichunk and Owens.
Yeah, it's up, scale-wise, it's right about here. As far as the other safety concerns, those should all be addressed within the forthcoming operation and maintenance plan. Those are pretty detailed and as far as the contingency and the safety procedures and responding and all that. You did mention battery storage expert, and I'd like to point out that ESRG is a company that is primarily a collection of retired New York City Fire Department personnel that are very experienced in this particular realm. I don't know if that's who may have presented previously, but they are a contact that we plan on offering for discussion and attending future presentations because they are knowledgeable in the particular systems, the response to them, the various management plans that and correct me if I'm wrong, but various plans being implemented throughout other areas besides Orange County.
No, that wasn't it, but I'd love to hear those people here. The person who showed up, and I'm not even sure.
He was great. No, he was with the, Davis Solar they flew him in from California.
He just knew batteries. That's all we talked about with batteries. He didn't talk about putting battery or anything else. He just talked batteries. It was amazing. It was interesting, for God's sake.
And they were coupling a battery with a solar array and that example?
Yeah, that's what they were presenting, and it was just, he did a great job on batteries.
Yeah.
Never seen someone so excited about that.
It was good. I don't think anybody fell asleep that time. But yes, I pay so whatever you can help us out with that.
Absolutely.
Because even hazmat, that kind of thing, I don't know anything.
Yeah.
But thank you.
Understood. As far as the internal access, as far as fire code, we're initiating discussion with the fire department soon, likely within the next couple of days. And hopefully those comments or concerns will be integrated into the site, which is currently operating. I do have one question. Sorry, I left that off my previous section. One of the comments noted aerial apparatus for fire department. These are only maximum 15 feet high, so I don't anticipate needing a ladder truck. Was that the intent to have aerial or just a typical pumper?
I don't think this board can speak to intent. That's in the town code, zoning code, right? So it would be the normal process in terms of go to the building inspector on the first instance, and then ZBA.
Okay.
I think the other question is how's the fire department going to fight it? They, even at 15 feet, they may decide the aerial apparatus, spring water down. So,
that could be why it's in there. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, thank you. We can get that.
One of the other questions I heard from a fireman is about the disconnect of the electric. Is there a massive disconnect somewhere away from the batteries perhaps, where you can just shut the electric cup off from the grid, or you shut the electric going back? I don't know how you have to do it. I don't play with electricity.
Maybe on one of the poles.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. I don't know.
We have 12 poles.
Right, and that may be the perfect spot to do it if they can do it.
We can refine that information and clarify, and that can be identified specifically again, I'm not electrical, but if it's a pole or if it's a switch going into the system, I mean, obviously, if it's on fire, you're not gonna wanna walk into the system to make the switch, but it seems like that would be typical and.
I would think so, but maybe there's no need for it, but whatever you have to do. And then obviously if it's gonna be there, we have to identify it well, good enough for the fire department to find it before they decide what's going on.
You can't walk in there, they made it very.
I have nothing further. I mean, there's a lot of information that's presented on here that I didn't go through. It wasn't the intent to regurgitate flood boundaries and wells and propane tanks. If I missed something that were intended, I
just have two quick things.
So
this is just in terms of navigating the process from this point forward. Well, we appreciate if the board takes action on seeker. In addition, we've had a dialogue back and forth on the issue of subdivision and whether these look more like, and I'm not sure if this is an example in town, more like a cell phone tower where you have kind of like a small described area that is leased within a larger lot. Somewhat different than, for example, a solar array encompassing a much larger area. So, I mean, there is the capacity, we've confirmed this with the county assessor, that a request for coming from the town for even this, although I know this hasn't been done before, for a tax ID number would potentially be satisfactory to the county assessor as opposed to a formal subdivision. And so that's really just representing that question to see if we know what direction we're going to go in.
Do you need a subdivision?
Is your question?
We need a tax ID number and a separately described, for purposes of the meters and the utility.
All the meets and bounds.
We just need a meets and bounds file, essentially a tax ID number that accompanies that.
The issue is if you create that lot, it's a landlocked lot, right?
Yeah, that is the
You
issue.
need other variances in connection with that, so you're asking the board whether they would assign or a recommendation to the assessor, whether they would issue a separate number for a lot that hasn't been created yet?
It won't be created.
It won't be, yeah.
Well, and I went back and forth with your attorney on this. I
Yep.
told them that that was not the procedure in this town, and we had come to, I thought, an understanding when this submission came in that that was no longer what you were asking for.
Oh, I see, okay.
And so, when you just said it, I just turned to Sean and said, I thought we were past this issue. So, that's not something that the town has done. I've been in contact with the county, I've seen the communications that you guys have had. We actually haven't done that for a cell tower in the town in, oh God, I've been here since '06. You've been
Probably
here
since before 2000.
for longer than that, so, in about 25 years at least, so.
Craigville Road, no,
I just-
not Craigville Road. That was, it was.
If that's something that you need, I think when you're making these revisions, you are here for the other applications, those are things you need to consider in terms of variances that you will require for this. The ZBA can do sunset provisions, or what I had told the attorney on this, or I'm not sure if he's still on this, but.
He is.
if-
Yes.
Okay.
Cuddy Fetter.
Yeah, I wasn't sure, so I kept saying that,
Yeah,
and
no,
I was
it's
like,
just
wait,
the
he's
way
not
it's-
here. So what I had told Alec was, otherwise, if this is considered, if you don't need that, then it's a second principal use, and then the planning board would consider it a second principal use on the property, and you just needed to meet all of the bulk and dimensional regulations for two principal
I
uses,
see,
which
yeah.
is where I thought we were,
Yeah, the application when it came in did not include anything in subdivision.
yeah. So,
Yeah, the challenge in dealing with the utility is that they require they will be looking at us as if we're an independent lot, tax lot. But then in many jurisdictions, I understand what you've said, but in many jurisdictions, that is assigned and then essentially goes away when the project goes away. Which, from the point of view of the ZBA and subdivision and the variances and so on, is just obviously straightforward from the applicant, more straightforward from the applicant's point of view. But I'll speak with Alec about it. If it's okay, we'll have just a clarifying follow-up.
yeah, and I think you've been on several of these, that we make it work where it doesn't actually slow your project down at all. You know, you can do them simultaneously, so it shouldn't really impact your process or your procedure, and we can make it where those lines, essentially, those subdivision lines, sunset out. But from a practical standpoint and a legal standpoint, that's the way the town has operated, and just even from the applications that were on the agenda tonight, it would be inconsistent to do something different and really would be precedential for.
Okay, I hear that.
And I really thought we were past the issue, so you really surprised me.
Glad to hear that.
I know when I
Understood.
saw your plans, I was like, okay, good.
Understood. So I'll connect with Alec on that. The only other is, given that this ultimately would require a special use permit approval, so the recommendation I gather would be to go and make an introductory presentation to the town board.
Yes.
So I'll work with the
And good
town
news,
clerk.
the supervisors already heard your presentation.
Yes, and I'll work.
Except for next Thursday.
Okay, very good.
If you're ready.
Yeah,
Mhm.
thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
So our intent will be submit some revised documents by May 1st for
Second meeting in May.
second meeting in May for the, I think it was whatever day. So that's our intent. Thank you.
It's always good to have goals.
That's what my mom always said.
Yeah, I know where you're going. I just want you to be aware, so that second meeting in May would be the 15th.
Yes.
Tonight is the 17th. If the secret referrals go out tonight, 30 days will not have elapsed, so there may be no action that this board can take at that time.
Gotcha.
So you may want to, I don't know if you want to reconsider that, or, you know, a lot of applicants don't want to come before the board if there's nothing the board can do.
Or he could set the internal date and then he gives himself 2 additional weeks. You know, some of us like those additional things.
It may be an opportunity to bring in one of the subjects, like the experts that we talked about, so we can.
I think we learn a lot still.
Yeah.
Thank you, Travis.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Back to you. That's why
Oh, I
I'm
thought
For
curious.
this
were
project or
talking
for the
to-
meeting?
No, for your project.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
No,
sorry. I thought you were like.
No, I just want to make sure Travis was done with his presentation before we moved on to your presentation.
I was just gonna say, the board can declare its intent to serve as lead agency and take the action as listed.
I will make that motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Bill's on that, Bill's good.
I didn't hear your hand.
Second.
Second by Phil. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Against? Okay, lead agency unlisted.
Obviously, public hearings required, not ready, GML referral, I'll do the referrals there and as well to the fire department. So that'll also help get their communication with the fire department started.
Thank you.
Should probably mention
I'd like to add just one thing, because I did just, when you said referral.
I said thank you before.
No, I know, but we prepared an ag data statement because.
You had a sequence.
Yeah, I know,
Yeah.
so I just want to let you know, we are preparing an ag data statement since we're within 500, there's residents within 500 feet of the ag district, so that shall be finalized next week and we'll coordinate. I'll check my notes, what needs to be done as far as the notification.
Once you send it in, Grace and I will know.
Now.
Now you're done.
Thank you.
Have a good night and have a good holiday.
Thank you.
You as well.
Appreciate it.
Sean?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, unless Grace tells you otherwise, the only application I have in their May 1st meeting is student bus coming back for their expanded program.
Unless Grace tells us otherwise.
That is it.
We know whose name it is.
Okay, anything else from the board? Not have a motion to close the meeting. Giovanni, second by.
I'll second.
Phil, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Against?